I would say whenever I presented this document at the level of onsite, so I was at an onsite level, I basically gotten the job offer every time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Heavy Chen Jung from toursdatascience.com. Today, I have with me Jeffrey Lee, who is a data scientist at DoorDash in the San Francisco office. He will be sharing with us 3 important techniques that he's used to find success during his application process and how you might possibly become the data scientist at DoorDash yourself. So thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
All right, cool, man. Let's get started with your professional background. So how did you become a data scientist?
So I don't really come from a traditional background to get into data science. I actually started off my career in technology consulting. That was my first job out of college. And while it was a good first job, I didn't feel like it was a good long-term fit for me. So outside of work, I got very interested in trying to learn things really, really quickly. And I was experimenting with a lot of different skills, such as like writing, freestyle rapping. And one of my bigger projects was trying to earn a living playing poker. My goal at the time was to get good enough at poker to be able to fund my lifestyle. However, there was one instance when I was playing poker where I ended up losing all my money. However, for me, I felt like if I was going to invest a lot of money and emotional energy into a skill, I might as well invest it into a skill that really creates value for other people. Rather, in poker, you're looking to take value from somebody else. So I wanted to keep going with that probability and statistics route. So as a result, I ended up moving into data science from there. And 3 years later, I am now a data scientist at DoorDash.
Wow. So from your days at poker, how did you manage that transition into data science, especially at DoorDash?
So I think I was self-taught quite a bit. Did a lot of coding on my own. I took a couple statistics classes in college, so I did have some understanding of linear regression, decision trees, random forest. I probably spent about 6 to 9 months just pure studying. And then I transitioned into my first job at a startup called DataQuest, which is an ed tech company, where I was doing a little bit of building out courses, and I was also doing analysis for our marketing teams. So, however, I wanted to really develop my machine learning skills, and I think that depending on the company you go into, there will sometimes be a need for machine learning. However, in other instances, there will be a need for more experiment analysis. Really depends on the company that you go into. So DoorDash had a specific machine learning team, and then I ended up joining the team.
So in this machine learning team, what kind of projects do you get to take on there?
So for a little bit of context, DoorDash, we have 3 different teams related to data science. So we have an analytics data scientist, where they're focused on experiment analysis. They're focused on dashboards. They're focused on analysis that supports specific businesses. We have the machine learning engineers who are building much more of the infrastructure, doing a lot of the modeling and a lot of the productionization of the models. And my team, which is the data science machine learning team, we sit right in the middle of the spectrum between those 2 endpoints. So we are building a lot of models that are focused on business impact. We are also helping on experiment analysis, and we are also doing some data engineering and business analysis. So for me specifically, I've been working on projects such as our recommendation system, adding new features to show you the most relevant restaurants, building out pipelines to get recommendations into our emails. And I've also been working on marketing attribution, marketing segmentation, and we're also building out a model that predicts sales as well.
You mentioned that there's 3 different teams doing data science at DoorDash. So I'm curious, do you guys get to work cross-collaboratively on a shared projects, or do you guys work more independently in your own silos?
Yeah, so I think that for the most part, it really depends on the project that you are working on. So When my projects are much more engineering focused, like building out pipelines, making things faster, there isn't as much of a need to incorporate somebody on the business side as much. That's mainly me and the engineering teams because it's a mainly engineering focused project. However, there are projects like such as experiment analysis, where if we launch a new feature, we need to understand its impact. That will require us to more closely collaborate with both engineering because they are going to help execute the experiment, and the business side because they want to understand how this new feature impacts their business.
So it seems like for those who are very curious or interested in applying to DoorDash for data science positions, they should be pretty clear on these different roles and how they can most take advantage of their own strength. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I would say it's a combination of taking advantage of what you think you're good at and what experience that you have. I would also still say that if you are somebody who is very experienced on the experiment analysis side, but you want to get more into the modeling side, definitely still keep that in mind because I think in general at tech companies, as long as you articulate what you want and can create value with what you want, then you can pretty much get into any role. So like one example would be, let's say that you're doing very good on statistics and good at analyzing experiments, but you wanted to do more machine learning. So I think the best way to go about that is you can find business problems within the company where machine learning is the best solution to solve that problem. And if you can show your managers that this solution will have a significant impact on the business, your managers will most likely allow you to do it. So I think that if you can sell your manager that this modeling problem is very important, usually they will allow you to do it.
How is the application process like in general at DoorDash?
So the application process it's not too different from the application process at most tech companies. So if you go to our careers website, you can see the specific step-by-step process, but I'll give a quick summary. So we'll have an initial call with the recruiter, and then you'll get a take-home assignment. You'll be graded on your ability to build a machine learning model and go through the end-to-end process. If that looks good, we'll have a review call. So we will ask you a couple questions about your technique, try to understand your thought process on why you made certain decisions. And then if that looks good, you'll come to the on-site where we'll test you on business, machine learning, coding, and values.
Just curious, have you also had an opportunity to be part of this recruitment process yourself from the employee side?
Yeah, so I've done a good amount of reviewing take-homes and reviewing doing calls. So I think I'm still, I've been at DoorDash maybe 9 months, so I'm still getting a little more on-ramped for the on-site interviews. However, just like from my experience grading take-homes, I think that the biggest pitfall or biggest weakness I've seen in most data scientists on the market is being able to connect the machine learning model to the business impact. So a lot of very, very smart people will build this very complicated, 5-layer neural network that makes a great prediction that scores very, very highly. But then when we dig into the business impact for this specific model, they usually have a little bit of trouble answering that. And ultimately, we need machine learning to be impactful for the business. So that is actually very, very important.
So how can applications prepare for those kinds of questions when it's related to the business impact?
Mm-hmm. So I think the first step would be to just the act of thinking about, hey, okay, I built this model, and now how is this actually impactful for the business? So the best way to do that is, okay, then that will lead you to think, okay, so how do I know if something is impactful for the business? Well, the business likely has certain metrics that they measure to gauge the health of the business. So that could be revenue, profitability, cost. So I think if you're not too familiar with these business terms, I would recommend just reading up on, say, key business metrics that companies measure. And I would also advocate to take it a step deeper. So wherever you're interviewing for, I would say, let's say you're interviewing for a marketing analytics position. So you're like, okay, what does a marketing analyst or what does a marketing person care about when they are kind of doing their day-to-day work? Well, marketing cares about getting more users. They care about retaining their users, or they care about spending less on ads, but being able to get more users with less money. So you're like, okay, so now I know what they care about. So if I build this model, how does this actually improve? Like, how does this actually affect the things that they care about? So if it's hard to think through that gap, then it might be a signal that, hey, maybe I'll either need to research more about how this can be valuable, or this might not be valuable for this specific side of the business. So those are kind of like my initial recommendations, but I would generally make sure, remind data scientists to be empathetic towards those on the business side. Make sure you understand things from their perspective, because they don't know what ensembling or like hyperparameter tuning means. They don't really know. If you say, oh, my model got an AUC score of 95%, that doesn't really mean anything. So trying to understand things from their perspective and being able to convert that model to the things that they care about is very, very useful.
I see. Can you tell us about the strategies that you use in high level first to find success in getting into DoorDash as a data scientist?
So I've used three main strategies that hit on different parts of the pipeline to not just DoorDash, for just general data science recruiting. I send a cold email to the recruiter and the hiring manager. I use something that Ramit Sethi, this is where I got the idea from, called the briefcase technique. And the third one is I actually did some analytics on my own job hunt process to really optimize how I should spend my time and determine what would be the most valuable.
Oh, great. So that actually takes us very neatly to the next segment, where we'll examine the first document. So please stay tuned. All right, everybody, we're back with the first document, the conversion analytics spreadsheet that Jeff created and used during his interview process. So as you can see, there's two parts to it. There's the application process and the application strategies. Let's go with the first one on the top. Jeff, can you explain to us how we can read these numbers and what are the importance of the numbers in the first place?
Sure. So just for a little bit of context, while I was going through the job hunting process, one of the biggest challenges I had was, how do I best spend my time? Should I be studying for interviews? Should I be sending more applications? Should I be practicing responding to questions? And I didn't really know how to best spend my time. So what I wanted to do was actually use analytics/data science to solve this problem for finding a job in data science. So what I wanted to do was, since I've gone through the job process multiple times, I had enough data points to really map out and be able to pull some insights. So this spreadsheet is something I put together to map out the funnel of my job interview process. And the first half is mapping out, say, each part of the interview process. And then the last part is mapping out the different types of channels I use to get more interviews. So looking at the first section, one of the biggest takeaways here was that I needed to get at least 3 to 4 on-sites to really expect to get one offer. So if you look at this row here called expected percentage, what I did was I researched other blog posts, talked to friends to kind of get a general estimate of what I should expect my conversion rate to be moving from different parts of the funnel. So for example, if I sent 64 applications, I would expect only 30% of those applications to convert to phone screens. If I had, say, a certain number of phone screens, I would only expect 28% of those phone screens to convert into a technical screen. So those were the expected percentages. And what I did was, because I had all this data on my own process, I could actually see how my current conversion rates are measuring up against my expected percentage. So for example, right here, if my phone screens were much say it was 15%, and it was less than my expected percentage of 30%, that would mean that I should be spending more time studying and improving my answers on phone screens, and then less time on other things. However, if I'm getting to a lot of on-sites, but I'm converting, let's say I get to like 6 on-sites and I don't have any offers from those on-sites, that means I'm messing up somewhere on the on-site. So this kind of mapping out this funnel basically will tell me how many, where I should be focusing my job hunting process on. And then you can see here that based off of my expected percentages, I could determine, okay, so if I have only 1 on-site right now, I should still be aiming to get 3 more. So I can, based off of that expected value, I can expect to get 1 offer if I got 4 on-sites. And so that kind of, what I found was beneficial there was it kind of kept me level-headed. So I wouldn't get too wrapped up in one specific interview, but I would kind of see it as more of playing these numbers and playing the probabilities.
And so what are the benefits you think of using this technique over a standard technique, which is just not using any of these data?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like with a lot of data science problems, it is like an optimization problem. So how do we optimize a finite number of resources to maximize our gain? So if you're really interested in that topic, I would recommend looking to linear programming. So I didn't really use any machine learning models for this one because the data set was very small, and given you actually have to acquire enough data to get these insights. But I think it's really good for really maximizing the efficiency of your time, because in data science you can literally be studying statistics, programming, machine learning. You could be spending a bunch of time on your take home, but the problem is, it's like, how do I know which one is maximally valuable for me? And this definitely just solves that problem, saying, okay, I have 3 hours to study for interviews or prepare for my job hunt. Like, how can I effectively allocate that time so I can maximize my chance of getting a job offer?
No, that's great. All right, so let's move on to the next one, the application strategies.
Mhm.
And can you tell us what these different strategies mean, starting from the cold email plus direct?
Sure. So one of the things, so you'll see, like I just explained the top part, the funnel. However, there's also different ways of getting interviews. So for those familiar with marketing, these are called customer acquisition strategies. But then for us, it's called like like interview acquisition strategies. So I think it is fairly intuitive that if we know somebody at a company, it's usually better to get a referral into that company versus cold applying. But what I wanted to do here was actually quantify the impact of getting a referral. So you'll see here that I asked for about 7 referrals, and 3 of those converted into actual interviews, which is a conversion rate of 43%. But then over here, you'll see that when I just send a purely direct job application with absolutely zero like warm contact with the company, I convert about 6%. So you'll like, of course, 42% is much better than 6%. However, how do we actually normalize both of these channels so we can properly compare these two, both referrals and direct? So what I did here was I determined, okay, how much time does it actually take to get a referral? So given that you know somebody at the company, it probably takes like 3 to 5 minutes to write out a message, talk with your friend to ask for a referral. So then I converted this to time per conversion. So how much time do I have to spend to convert to an interview, which is about 11 minutes. However, for a pure direct application, it probably takes me maybe 7 to 10 minutes. I was being conservative here. 7 minutes here to fill out a job application and submit it. However, based off of the conversion rate, the time per conversion is around 110 minutes for each interview. So you can see here that it's much, much better. It's about like 10 times better. Your odds are 10 times better if you get a referral than if you just purely apply directly. So then the insight here is it might feel more productive to keep sending out like mass applying to more jobs, but it is actually, you'll actually get farther by simply asking for referrals. And in this case, even if you don't even know that the person at the company that well, even if there's a 50% chance they'll say yes to giving you a referral, it's still better to ask, because your odds are still even 5 times better if you ask for a referral for somebody you don't really know that well compared to just applying like directly. So you'll see here, outside of referrals and direct applications, there are other channels that you can also use. So in there's one called cold email and direct. And what this means is we are going to find the recruiter's email, we're going to find the hiring manager's email, and we're going to send them a cold email pitching myself, and we're also going to directly apply to the website. So you'll see here the conversion rate is actually fairly high, around 30%, because one, I would say most people don't do this, and two, it requires more time, it requires more effort. You have to find somebody's email. However, you'll see that the conversion rate generally, it takes a lot more time. So the time per conversion is still a little bit better than just applying directly. So yeah, those are the main channels that we would use to apply for. Those are the main channels that I like, the comparison between those 3 different channels.
And that's great, because now we can move on to the second document. We'll be examining even closer what this direct recruiter email is. So let's move on to that one. All right, everybody, we're back with the second document, the direct recruiter email. Just to remind you guys, this is the email that Jeff sent right after sending his cold application. So spare me a couple minutes for me to quickly read over this document. Hey, Heather, I know you're really busy and you get a lot of emails. Found sample company through AngelList. Already applied for the data scientist position, but wanted to reach out directly. Promise this email will be less than 60 seconds. I'm Jeff, I'm a data scientist. A few things about me. I built a data science in Python and R track for the DataQuest.io, used by hundreds of thousands of students and by companies such as Airbnb, Spotify, Uber, etc. So I excel in communicating technically complex topics to non-technical audiences. On the technical side, I built the Bookie Monster, which is a monster that eats books and summarizes them using LDA and Doc2Vec. App here, blah, 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 third paragraph. In addition, I'm obsessed with figuring out how to learn things fast. As a result, I'm also working on an ambitious side project called Monster to Master, where I attempt to master 1 difficult skill each month, blah, 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 blah. Thanks again. I totally understand if you're busy, so no rush on the reply. If you feel like there is a possible fit on your end, would love to further this conversation. Hope you have a great week. Attached resume. That's Jeff. Okay. So what is the strategic points that you thought while you were crafting this letter?
So yeah, so this letter has a lot of different things going on. I think that this kind of delves into more skills on understanding human psychology and understanding, say, just general writing to hook the recipient into the letter. So I think the first line here, I know you're really busy and you get a lot of emails. The idea is to really respect somebody's time, and because most people do get a lot of emails, and even on my end now at DoorDash, I get quite a bit of messages and emails from people asking me for something. So I think initially you want to respect the person's time because they are very busy. And then right after that, you want to say establish some way, some like form of establish the source of how you found them as a person and why you're emailing them. So it's very clear what my intention is. Hey, this is what I'm interested in with this company, but I want to respect your time still. The next 2 paragraphs, so the second paragraph has me kind of building out my credentials. So what we want to do here is use my past experiences to show why I am a good fit for this specific role. So show my qualifications on why you should hire me for this specific role. So then, and then in that second paragraph, you want to highlight, say, different parts of your skill set that you think makes you different from everybody else. The third paragraph, I added that mainly to show who I am as a person outside of work. I love learning things. I love taking on ambitious projects, and I love trying to stretch the limits of what I can do. So I really want to show that side of my personality. And that way, somebody who's reading this entire document can see that, hey, this person has technical skills. This person has like also has communication skills, but this person also is very, very committed to getting better as a person and like learning more. So I think every person has some sort of differentiating factor. So I would say that for whoever wants to use this template, figure out, like, really think hard about what differentiates yourself from everybody else. And then the last portion of this email, thanks again. I totally understand if you're busy, so no rush on reply. So this is actually a golden line that I learned, that whenever you send somebody an email and you say that, hey, don't worry about replying, or say, hey, like, take your time on replying, they usually will reply a lot faster than you saying something, hey, like, please let me know when you're free to talk. So it's kind of an interesting paradox, but I've noticed that that line tends to get people to respond quicker. My guess, it's because you are also showing that you're considerate of what they have to do and their priorities, and you can really understanding things from their perspective.
And for me, what really strikes me is that you use these numbers and you sprinkle them throughout the text, right? From 60 seconds, hundreds of thousands of students, 27 consecutive pull-ups, and so on. And I think these numbers are a great way to communicate with the lay audience, especially, like, say, the recruiters who are not so familiar with the technical side, but who can understand the impact you've made through these numbers. In the same way, you're name dropping big companies like Airbnb, Spotify, Uber. They understand the standard that you're setting. So that's my take. Do you have any thoughts on that, or any other points that you want to make?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that, like, ultimately, similar to a point I made earlier about using ML to make impact, like, the goal is you are looking to make an impact for the business. So if you can show whoever's reading this that, yes, you have made an impact and you've had a proven track record of success, it immediately establishes a much higher, like, you just have much more credibility in their eyes. So that's actually why I use these numbers and name drop. It's very important to show, to establish that type of credibility.
No, that's great. So far, we have observed two documents. The first one being very relevant to even before applying to job positions. When you're getting ready by creating these spreadsheet is a way to track your bottlenecks as well as your opportunities. And the second document that we're reading right now, the direct recruiter email, is a great way to get ahead when you're doing the initial phase of application. And the third document that we'll be examining soon is the briefcase document, or the briefcase technique, that is going to be very relevant at the later stages of the application, especially when you're trying to seal that deal. So let's move on to that third document. All right, hi everybody. So we're examining the last document, the briefcase document. So Jeff, what exactly is this document? How did you come up with this idea, and what is the base use for this specific document?
Yeah, so this document, so I can't take credit for this idea. I got it from multiple sources. Ramit Sethi, he coined this term, the briefcase technique. And the idea is that whenever you go into an interview and you're going through this interview process, having a good conversation, what you do at the end of the interview is say, wait 1 second, I took some time to think about some of your problems and I've prepared a little bit of something for you. And then you whip out your briefcase in very dramatic fashion and you show the hiring manager that you've understood their pain points and you've detailed solutions to solving those specific pain points. And from a hiring manager perspective, they are salivating because they're thinking that, okay, if I hire this guy or girl, this person will come in, they've already been thinking about my problems, and then they will go in and solve, like, they will solve all my problems. Given, like, without enough context into the company, sometimes it's going to miss, but I think it also shows a ton of initiative and a ton of forethought before even joining a company. So so like what the briefcase technique is, it is basically a document that outlines the pain points the company has and ideas and projects that you propose to solve those specific pain points. And these projects are at a level of detail, such as the resources that you're going to use, the amount of time that you think this is going to require, the outline of the project that you're going to work on. And it gets to a level of detail where it's just very, very easy to actually implement these ideas.
Great. So before we get into it, it's already a very hefty document with a whole bunch of things. For the audiences there, I'm going to be uploading this document to be shared by everyone else. So please don't freak out. Let's see how this document itself is structured. So we have random company name, data science action plan, and we have the goal that we're mentioning right in the front to grow data science into at least 2 new verticals for the quarter. And now we get into the pain points, which is the speculated one. And you have outlined 4 different pain points. So let me ask you here, how did you come up with these pain points?
So when you're coming up with pain points, so each company has different pain points. And what you have to do is actually, one, either get an informational interview with somebody at the company and ask them what their pain points are, or 2, as you're going through the interview process, say with the recruiter or with the hiring manager, you ask them at the end of the interview, hey, what are your biggest challenges and what are you struggling with? So those are the two areas where you can get those pain points from. And just like an extra note, nobody does this. Like I've been hiring for over the last year, literally 0 people have done this. So I would say that if you do this, it'll easily separate you from the crowd. However, it does require more work. You do have to be proactive and get informational interviews and spend the extra time to go through this process.
Great. So let's just read the first one real quick. Teams outside of engineering, data science, analytics don't fully understand the impact of how data science can help them. So then we can move on to project 1, education course, creating an AI without code. So if I'm not mistaken, this project that you've highlighted right here corresponds to the first pain point and how to address it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So so the idea here is that once you have their pain points, you spend some time actually thinking about the best solution towards solving that pain point. And in this scenario, for a company I was interviewing for, I'm sure a lot of companies have a similar pain point where teams outside the technical domain have trouble understanding what machine learning is. So the proposal here is to say build out a course or like a training material for somebody who has a non-technical background to learn how machine learning and AI work without needing to learn how to code. So this would be doing machine learning inside spreadsheets, and we'd be able to teach, say, basic machine learning concepts, without needing to code.
So can you run me through how this particular part is broken down?
Yeah. So the way like this is building out project structures. So with a project, you always want to kind of map out what specific outcome you want that project to create. Once that's specific, we have pain points. So we want to make sure that this project is still in line and solving problems for the company. Because ultimately, as an employee, hiring managers do not hire us because of our data science skills. They hire us because we are there to solve problems using our data science skills. So we want to touch on the pain points. Then here I said proposed experiment. So the way I think about these projects are that we don't know if it's going to actually work or not. So we want to de-risk like investing a ton of resources into a project if it's not going to work. So we would run a 2-week experiment, see if it's actually valuable. If it's not, we would scrap it. If it is, then we would keep going. And then and then later on, I kind of map out what the curriculum might look like and what resources would be needed to execute this project effectively.
Great. How long did this take you to finish this document?
Yeah, so I would say you should spend at least 3 to 4 hours on this document, maybe more. And I would also say that you should use 3 to 4 hours on the document and at least like an hour talking to somebody or in interviews trying to get the relevant information to be able to write this document.
So from your personal experience, how have the responses been from the hiring side when they receive this document?
Sure. So I would say whenever I presented this document at the level of onsite, so I was at an onsite level, I basically gotten the job offer every time. However, I think I need to like I think there are different ways you can use this document. So if you have experience, I would say, and you can get interviews, like generally get phone screens and interviews, use this document at the level of the on-site. So I think that this is, if you don't have the necessary skill set for the job, this document will not make up for it. So you still need to pass the coding interviews. You need to still pass all the technical interviews. And then on the on-site level, if you are tied with like somebody else, this document will basically raise you above any competing candidates. However, for somebody who does not have any experience in data science and they're looking to get their foot in the door, I would say you can use this document to send to the hiring manager before your interview to at least get an interview. So I would say that save this for companies that you really want, because this is much more intensive and this does require a lot more effort. But generally the response rate has been 100% if I sent this document to a company.
All right, thank you very much for sharing these 3 documents. As I mentioned before, all of these 3 documents will be available to the public, so stay tuned for that. All right, so switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about the TDS article that you wrote on the Tinder bot. So can you tell us a little bit about what this article is?
Sure. So I wanted to learn how convolutional neural networks and deep learning worked. And the way I approach learning is to find problems in my own life that I want to solve using the skill set that I have. So in this scenario, I felt like dating apps took up too much time. So I thought it would be easier to build a convolutional neural network that would actually classify profiles that I would like or dislike for me. And through this process, I actually really learned how neural networks work, the different layers, what the difference was between convolutional neural networks and regular neural networks, and a lot of different concepts on how to actually like tune your neural network and some of the challenges that I encountered when trying to build this out.
Since our talk is about recruitment, can you tell us if that article had any impact on the recruiting process?
Sure. So I would say that this was a little more indirect. However, I would say this definitely gave me a great selling point for future. Gave me a great selling point for when I was pitching recruiters in that email. I turned it into a blog post, and I would say that was very useful for non-technical recruiters or non-technical hiring managers to actually understand the process for what I did and my thought process in building out that project. And yeah, I think the main benefit is I just got better at my skill set, and yeah.
All right, cool. So as a final question, can you give us any words of advice to the TDS community, especially on the recruiting process in general?
Yeah, so when I was playing poker, there was one concept where you can make the right moves in poker, but you might still lose money. So the previous example I talked about was when I had the best hand that I could get in the beginning, I still lost money, but I made the right moves. So I think that concept applies to everything in life. There's always like random chance, like in our day to day, and sometimes we might do the right thing, but it might not be a positive outcome for us. And this applies directly to recruiting. When recruiting, there's so many variables, so much random chance involved. It's hard to really control for those types of things. So, for example, you might kill it in the interview. However, somebody with a PhD in math with 5 years of experience is right after you, and there's no way to really compete with that if you don't have a similar background. So I would say with recruiting, just focus on the things that you can do that are in your control, and focus on making the right moves. So these right moves might be sending 3 cold emails per day, always sending a thank you email, doing this briefcase technique after your interview. These are the things in your control, and these will give you the better odds to get the job. But you have to still remember that sometimes there is random luck involved, and sometimes it might not go your way.
All right, so thank you for sharing those words with us, and thanks for being here again, Jeff.
Cool. Thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody has any more questions or wants to uh, needs any help with the recruiting process, feel free to visit my website at jeffleechronicles.com and you can just send me an email there.
Sounds good. Thank you again.